In this lesson, we'll be starting with where we left off in our previous lesson, and I guess we can call this part 2 in a way. What we have so far was a background and a tile map creating some ground objects and some walls and floors and so on. And we have a character introduced to the scene, and we also introduced a built-in script that allows basic motion, left, right, and jumping. I'm just going to quickly do a run game here, and we'll just quickly test that out to establish where we're at, and then we'll take it a bit further. So I will make that bigger as well. And so again, left and right action and jumping, and all of the tile elements do have resistance. They do have collision features. Okay, so we're going to close that up. And in this next segment, we're basically going to add some animation to our sprite. We are going to tweak the character movements, and we're going to use what's called an input map, which is part of the project settings up here, to designate more key presses to create various actions on the stage. So in this case, it'll be mostly direction, but we're going to physically assign specific keys, and we'll assign more than one key for the same thing. So for example, we'll do A and D for left and right, as well as the left and right arrows, and so on. Okay, so we will take that from here, and I think the next step we'll do is actually create a basic animation for our character. So to add animation to our character, we'll have to dig into the scene that is our character, which is this ninja.tscn. So I'm going to double click that, and it opens up in its own tab here. And let's just center this and zoom in on it. There we go. So basically our character is made up with a parent node called CharacterBody2D and two child nodes, Sprite2D and CollisionShape2D. It's the Sprite2D that we need to basically swap out for an animated Sprite2D, what's known as animated Sprite2D. There's a couple of ways I can approach this. I can right click and go change type right here, and I can just assign a new type, and that's probably the most direct way of doing it. I will warn you though that the name will remain the same up here. So if I chose to do it a different way, which is to just delete this and add a new animated sprite, I could do it that way too. So let me click on the parent here and actually add the animated sprite 2D. And I'm just going to drag that up above here. And I'm going to hide sprite 2D for a second. Okay. But I'll just hide it for now. I do have the collision shape there. That may or may not work for this one, but let's deal with the animated sprite. You can see there's a caution there. It doesn't have any graphics attributed to it yet. So speaking of that, I will need to grab a sprite sheet that I have over here, and that would be under main characters, and the character I'm using is called Ninja Frog, and I have one here called Idle. If I show you that, it's a series of frames animating him just kind of sitting around but moving. Okay, so I'm going to grab that graphic and drag it into my file system. And you know what? I'm going to actually just put it right in the art folder right now. And there it is. Okay. Now that we have our idle artwork in place, let's apply it to our animated sprite 2D. So I'm going to select it over here. You do need to go to the inspector. You need to initiate what's known as a set of sprite frames. So opening up the animation option, I'm going to click on empty and choose new sprite frames. Now I will have to come down here. I find sometimes this doesn't catch up. If I click away and then click back on animated sprite frame, that's what I want to access, the sprite frames option. Again, if it doesn't appear right away, just click away and click back on it. Okay, and we start with what's known as a default animation. Now we still need to apply the sprite sheet to it, but we do have sort of an empty animation component, if you will. So the way we apply it is over here. We have called add frames from sprite sheet. So I'm going to click on that, and I'm just going to go into my art folder and choose idle and click open. So that opens up here. I'm going to zoom up on that a bit, as separate elements. Now I happen to know, I believe the sprites are 32 by 32, and we do need to have sort of them uniquely divided. So under size, I'm just going to go 32 by 32. Hit my tab key, and that is the correct division. You can see they're evenly spaced. Now these are all what will be animated frames. Okay, so we've designated within the graphic, known as a sprite sheet, we've basically broken it up into 32 by 32 pixel square frames. Okay, once we have that, we need to select the frames to designate which ones will be applied to this animation, because you can leverage a sprite sheet and only use some of the frames. In this case, we are going to use all of them. So you start by clicking the first one and just drag across all of them, and you'll see they will be numbered 0 through 10. Add 11 frames. Click on there, and there we have it. There is our animated element, and the default are these. So to preview this, I'm going to hit my play button, and you can see it animated. Now it's going slow, so I'm going to actually increase that up to 20. Alright, so I'm good with that. So I'm just going to hit the pause button here. And just a little repair job. I'm going to actually take that and resize it. Basically to fit, generally speaking, the collision shape. And play button here again. There we go. And that collision shape is actually pretty good for the area that I want to react. So I'm just going to save this. I'll actually hit pause here. Save scene. And at this point, I can get rid of the sprite 2D. Again, I could have right-clicked, change type. That would have worked as well. But I just wanted this reference to the genuine node name to still be there. And yes, I could have renamed it as well. But let's just go in here and delete that one. Okay, so in effect, I'm replacing that static graphic with an animated sprite. So let's just save that again and test it. Make sure this thing works. Oh, and it's not working. There's one thing I forgot to do. It's not a mistake, it's just an omission, but it's still static. So we do need to set an autoplay basically on it. So let me go back here. And here is the autoplay button right here. Autoplay unload. Oops. There you have it, right? That's why we test. I'm going to save that again. Save scene. One more time with feeling, as we say. There we go. There we go. And I'll make this bigger so you can really appreciate it. And there's our little animated guy. It's not animating particularly to any directed movement, but it is animating in general, and this one's called idle. Okay, and again, if I go around here, there we go. So there's our basic animation. That's how you can set up an animation, but let's take this a step further. I intend to apply different animations for jumping as well as running. So let's go back into our sprite frames here. And we're going to add two other animations, two other sets of animations. Now the jumping will just be a static frame, but let's add those here, and then later we can actually refer to these animations inside of our code and designate the specified animation to the designated action. Okay, so we'll start by adding two more animations in our list here. Add animation. And I'm just going to double click that, and I'll just name this one, I guess I'll name it jump. Jump. Okay, and for that, let's just designate add frame from file, art. I'm just going to use the jump graphic. There we go. Okay, so we're going to do one more. So we've got one called default, which is auto starts on that one, as you can see here. So we're going to add one more. This one we'll call running. Running. We will apply a proper sprite sheet to that. So let's go over and then choose this button called Add Frames from Sprite Sheet. And oh, you know what? I actually need to grab that one. I'm going to cancel that for a second. Go out to my Finder, and it's the one called Run. So I'm just going to drag that directly here. I think I can put it straight in the art folder. Yes, I can. So there it is. It's called Run. And we'll apply that now. So we'll go back to our add frames from sprite sheet, and I'm already in my art folder here. Here's the run file. Open that. I'm just going to zoom in on there and set these to 32 by 32. I'm setting the frame size. There we go. Then we select to assign which frames will be applied to the animation, and I click and drag across them all. Add 12 frames. There we go. And we will just save that. So that's kind of step one for animation. We've set up 3 various animations that can occur, but we have one that's going to occur regardless, and we will set up the next 2 inside of our script. Okay, so let me just do one more run project here. Make this nice and big. And again, you can see our little guys coming to life a little bit more. And it does move and basically breathe and move on the spot. So I'm just going to close this and we'll go to the next step. It just occurred to me that I think I didn't set the frame rate properly. So I'm just going to go back here, go to my sprite frames. I'm talking about the running animation, which we actually haven't applied yet. But yeah, I see I left it at 5 frames. I'm just going to clean up that little detail here. If I hit play, I'm just going to zoom that up to 20. There we go. Okay, and that works. And now we'll move on to our next steps. Okay, so let's get back to the scripting to deal with the next steps here. I'm just going to actually click script here, and here is our character script that was attributed when we first applied it. It's fairly straightforward in a way. The function physics process is what happens every frame basically, so 60 frames per second, so every 60th of a second the following here occurs. So this first section basically deals with when it's in the air, when it's not on the floor, and the comments are actually quite helpful. So this actually applies gravity as well when it's not on the floor. This is for the jumping, so it's looking for a key being pressed and establishing the velocity of the jump here. And then this last section is determining which direction we're moving in, and once again determining a velocity in either direction. Okay, so that's what these 3 sections are about. It's worth noting also in Godot that the y-axis actually increases in number as we go towards the bottom. Unlike a lot of conventional programs that actually increase in number going up, Godot increases numbers downwards. So going upwards actually takes you into the negative numbers. Just thought I would let you know about that as well. So basically our next 3 tasks will be to flip the character right or left based on the movement. The second thing will be to change the character's animations based on what's happening. And then thirdly, we're just going to tweak some of the smoothness, the walking and the jumping logic. Okay, so we'll start with flipping the character right and left based on movement. Okay, so let me just click back on Animated Sprite 2D for a second and just point out here in the inspector for the animation under offset we have this nice property called flip H, flip vertical. That's flip horizontal. So we do want to access a property that's inside of here. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a direct link basically to access the node and its properties. And the way we do that is we come over here to the scene and you drag and drop the node into the script, and it's going to make a reference to it. It's actually going to create a variable that will refer to it. So let me just drag this in here. Now the very important thing is I'm going to drag it just underneath these constants, is when you let go on the Mac, hold your command key down, on the PC hold your control key down. And that creates this beautiful reference to the Animated Sprite 2D. And this is actually the reference right here. And it's making a variable called Animated Sprite underscore 2D. This is the variable type. We'll be getting into programming much deeper, but you're going to have to go on faith for now and just trust me in what I'm explaining. But this gives you a direct link basically to the properties for the Animated Sprite 2D. And to access these properties or refer to them, we refer to the variable name right here. Okay, so we're going to just scroll down to the bottom of the page and we're going to add some code. Let me just actually click on script here, and I'll just click over here to get rid of that at the bottom, and we're going to add some code at the bottom of our page. Okay, so we're going to create a variable here. Let me just start by typing var space, and I'll just say is left. It's to detect if it's moving left. So is left equals, and that's saying if it's doing the following. And it's checking, basing the direction based on the velocity. And you see my code hints come up here, so I can type in velocity. And which direction, dot x, is smaller than 0. So if it's smaller than 0, it's moving to the left, basically. If the velocity is greater than 0, it's moving to the right. If it's 0, of course, it's standing still. So I'm actually just attributing, I'm saying if the velocity is less than 0, which is defined as moving to the left. Let's go to the next line, and we will actually declare the sprite. So we're going to use the animated sprite 2D. I could copy and paste that, but I think I'll attempt to type it here. Animated. Oh, it does actually show up in code hints once we have the variable. So animated sprite 2D dot, and you remember that property flip. Now in code it's flip underscore h. And I see it in my code hints here as well. And then I'll say is equal to this variable is left. So we'll just type in that variable name is left, and that should do it. Let me actually just correct my typo here. Flip h. All right, save that. And I will give that a test. But you know what? I'm just going to come up here and just give this another line space just to distinguish this. It's nothing to do with anything performance wise. I just like to see it on its own. Again, I'm going to save that, and we'll give it a test project here. So if it works, when we move to the left by hitting the left arrow, our little character should be facing left. It should flip as soon as the key gets hit. So let's try that and cross our fingers. Here it comes. All right. Okay, so moving to the right. Oh, just waiting for my computer to catch up to me here. There we go. And I don't know if you noticed, but I'll come over here. When it's going to the left, it is actually facing left. So that's pretty cool. So we were actually to flip the graphic based on an action, which in this case is a key press. Okay. And there we go. We are getting there. Let me just review that. I'll close this again and quickly review in the code. Just close that up here. So again, we had generated a variable called animated sprite underscore 2D, which is referencing the actual animated sprite, as you can see over here. And what we're saying is we're creating another variable to hold the information if the velocity of the the animated sprite is less than 0 on the horizontal axis, the x-axis, flip the graphic for the variable animated underscore sprite underscore 2D. So make it the same as that. And if you don't fully understand that, I'm going to ask you to go on faith right now. We will be digging deeper and deeper into the programming and the syntax and the logic as we move along. But right now we are working with what was generated code, and we're just modifying it. Okay. So that is the first step in creating directional animations based on the direction of the character's movement. I'm going to run that just very quickly once more. And we got right and left. Okay, on to the next step. Next, we'll be applying different animations. If I can go back to my animated sprite for a second, we do have already 3 animations designated, which is going to make this a little bit easier. So let's just go back here, and I will start with when it's not on the floor. So I'm just going to add a line here to this if statement, and it always has to be tabbed like that. And it's going to say, I'm going to use the animated sprite 2D, refer to the node animated sprite 2D. I'll just double click on that, and equals, let me just go back here, equals quote marks. And you remember in my animation I had one called jump. You have to spell it exactly the same, but equals jump. Oh, and I forgot something in here. You see how it's red? That tells me that there's a coding issue. Actually, this is good that this came up. And it will usually give you a hint to what the problem is down here. I have to say what about the sprite is going to equal jump. And I'm going to say dot animation, referring to the animation. So let me just get that in there. And let me spell that correctly. Okay. No more red line, which is a good sign. I'm just going to save my scene here. And now when the jump happens, it should sort of seem like it assumes that still image. So let's give that a quick try. Okay, we'll just make this guy bigger again. And so I'm running along and jump. Okay. Now it has kind of stiffened it up. It's not a complete thought. It does work, but it doesn't revert back to the animation. So we're going to address that next. Okay, we're going to put in some conditions basically to address the animation, and we're just going to put that in up at the top here. Okay, so I'm just going to make a little room for that. When I said at the top, I meant within this function here, at the top of the function. Okay, so made a little room there, and I'm going to start by creating an if statement. So if, and that's comma, or rather brackets, if the velocity dot x is greater than 1, dot x is greater than 1, and that's looking for a movement basically, or, and or is the two vertical lines there, velocity dot x is smaller than -1, is smaller than -1, then we'll go down here and we'll put a colon at the end of that line and then come to the next line, and here are the conditions that must be met. Again, this animated sprite 2D, I'll just double click on that, sprite 2D dot animation. And this is where we designate the different animations. Dot animation equals, and then it goes into quote marks, and this one will be running, which is what I call the animation. Okay. Then the next line, we're going to say if that's the case, set it to running. Otherwise, and that's the else statement. And then the next line, same thing, animated. Let me just double click on the shortcut here. Animated sprite 2D dot animation will revert back basically, equals quote marks, and it was called default, like that. Okay. Oh, I forgot to put a, see again, there's the red line, and that's a syntax error in this case. I forgot to put in my colon. And again, we will learn all these syntax issues as we go. And this one actually should not be indented. It should be in line with the if statement. There we go, like that. The hints do help a lot when there are errors, but I believe it's good now. So once again, let me repeat what I added. An if conditional, known as an if statement. If, and the conditions inside of the brackets, if the velocity, the horizontal velocity, is greater than 1, that means it's moving basically, and moving to the right in this case, or, this means or the velocity dot x is lower than -1, meaning moving to the left, do the following. Set the animation to the variable animated sprite 2D to the animation named running, and if that condition isn't met, set it back to default. So this is what will resume our movement. You notice when we tested the jump, it was no longer idle. This should address that. Let me just save and we'll test that. Okay, and again, I'm just going to make this big. And there's the idle, and all right, it looks like, let me go to a spot here. Yeah, and there's the running. When we're stopped, it's idle. that flip still applies when it's running. And when it's idle, it just vibrates. And when it falls or jumps, it's kind of in that ninja pose. Okay, so definitely much more sophisticated now with the animation. We're actually designated animation based on, in this case, key presses and visually on which direction we are going in and if we're jumping or running or staying still. So we actually have technically, I guess, 4 different animations happening. The idle, and then the running. And running is going in both directions, so it's flipping. And then we have the jump. Okay. I'd say that's a pretty good milestone to get past. And now on to the next steps. Let me just close this up here. Okay, I'm just going to close this output window here. And we're going to tweak the some of the movement here. The line I wanted to check out was this one here called velocity.x equals move toward. Move toward is basically, if in this case, if the left or right key are not being pressed, it will move toward. And that's basically a gradual slowdown. Now it's set to the speed here, and I'm going to talk about that a bit. At the top we have the CONST, constant speed. Speed equals 300. And we also have jump velocity equals minus 400 because the y-axis moves in negative numbers towards the top. Okay, so the way the move toward works is it goes velocity over time. And this is set, like our maximum speed, which is the velocity, is set to 300. So it's going to slow down over that number of steps. And it's too big of a number, and it's just going to seem sudden. So we need to have a much lower number to make it more effective. So I'm going to suggest we replace speed here in the arguments with a smaller number, maybe 10 or so, and we'll try that. Let's just give that a try and we see if we even notice it. So I'm going to just jump up onto a platform and then let go of the key. So let's just get our little friend down here. Okay. And you know, I'm going to let you know when I let go. Let go. Okay. And there's a little bit of a decay. All right, it's just that much better. It might be hard to detect to the untrained eye, but when I let go of the key, there's a little decay. So let's play with that number a little bit just to see. So that was 10. Let's say if I did 2, get very extreme here, okay? And I'll get him up to that second platform again. So that takes too long to decay. So the higher the number, basically the quicker the decay. So if I went, say, 100, which is sort of 1/3 of what the max was when it was set to speed. We'll check that out. Okay. So I'm just going to, again, jump over to my little platform. See, even 100, it's too sudden. So I found the happy number was around 10, 12, 14 or so. So I'm going to bring this down to 12. And we'll give that one final test. I think that's the one I'm going to run with, though. No pun intended. Not 120, but 12. Okay. I will save that as well. And we'll give that another run project here. Okay. So back to my flat platform. Yeah. So I'm going to leave it at 12. 12 is the happy number for me. And again, it's called move toward. It decays the movement versus a rigid rapid stop. It's just much more natural. Okay, so that's one tweak. Let me close this now. Okay, I'm just going to close the output window here. And some of the other tweaks we can tweak in the code are the constants, the speed. We can change that number. So I'm going to up the speed to 400. And the jump velocity, I'll say minus maybe 600. And again, that increases my jump height, basically. And then I have a reference, let's see here, to the gravity down here. So for the gravity, it actually gets it from the project settings, get gravity. So let's go to project settings, and we'll affect the gravity settings there. That would be down here under physics 2D. And you have gravity here. The default is 980, so if I maybe double that, I'll just round it out, 2000, let's say. And we'll give that a try. it might be too extreme, but let's just give all of that a try. So I've increased the gravity through the project settings, and the speed I've increased in this constant, as well as the jump velocity I've increased. So it should just be a little bit peppier maybe. Definitely the gravity I noticed was much more severe. And if I just go over here, you can see how that gravity's. Okay, so it's just a little more peppy, as I said. And that's something you can play with to your desire, whatever you're trying to achieve here. So I think I'm going to probably set some of that stuff back. So let's go backwards and just change some of that again. My speed, maybe I'll bring that down to 350. It started at 300, and maybe I'll take my jump velocity down to 500. Started at 4, tried it at 6, seemed a little bit much. And then my gravity, under project settings, under physics 2D, let's just make that maybe 1200. It was 980, I believe, when I started here. And close that. Definitely save all of that. And we'll give that another test here. Okay, I do like the gravity better already. I'm just going to let our friend fall here. Yeah, definitely. Speed is pretty good there too. And the jump, I got a little more jump, right? So it'll just make the game a little easier, I guess, for that matter. But there we go. Some nice tweaks. We have refined the movement. We do have a decay now with the move toward setting being adjusted. And we've got left and right, and he is facing left when moving left and right when moving right. There we go. And I'm just going to close this window now, and we'll move on to the next steps. Now we're actually going to assign specific keyboard keys to create the actions and override the defaults, if you will. I'm just going to close this output window. And we're going to deal with the UI accept, which is what creates the jump, and the UI left and the UI right. Even in the comments here, it actually says you should replace these. They are best only to be used for UI and not for gameplay. So we're going to replace these with custom actions, if you will, and that's done in the project settings. So we'll call it my project settings, and we're going to go to the input map. So here we can actually make custom actions. So I'm going to click add new action. I'm going to call one left, hit the add button, and I'll create all three of them: left, right, and jump. Okay. And now in here I can assign any keys I wish to each one of these actions. So the one called left, I hit the plus sign, and I can go to keyboard keys. I can try here as well. I'm not sure, but left, I'll try my left arrow. Actually, it did put it in, so I'll click OK. And I'm actually going to add the A key as well. So I'll do another plus sign, and I'll type in my A key. Click OK. And there we go. Now, just to show you, I'm going to click plus again. You can go in and manually, select any one of these elements as well. Joypad buttons, for example, I can go joy button, let's see here, axis 0, and joypad buttons as well. Anyway, I'm going to just leave those alone, but those are for the Xbox and Sony consoles and so on. So you can stack them all up in here and have several. So let's deal with the right one now. So for here, I'm hitting the right arrow on my key, on my keyboard, and then I click OK, and I'll do that again, plus. And in this one, if I wanted to go to the D key, I guess I could go the hard way here. And where's the D? There's the D right there. It's definitely easier using that hint window, that search window. And for the jump, I'm going to attribute maybe 3 to that one. We'll start with the space bar. And then I'll add the plus sign, and I'm going to use the W. It's a common one as well. And I'll also use the up arrow. And up arrow. Okay. So now I have what are called actions in my input map under my project settings: left, right, and jump. So I need to refer to those in the script at this point. So I'm going to close that. I will save. And in the script, it's the UI accept that I wish to replace in here. This is for the jumping, so I'm going to call it that one jump. Has to be spelled the same, of course, as the action name. These yellow bits refer to the actions. This one we'll just simply take out that and call it left, and this one we will call right. Okay, let's save that and give that a try. Now I think I'll try my AWD keys just to make sure this is working. And there's my accelerated gravity. So if I try the W key, that works. I'm going to try the space bar, that works, and the up arrow key, that worked. The A key moves to the right, or to the left rather, D to the right. The arrow keys are still working as well. So that's really how you customize and set controls based on keyboard presses to engage or trigger actions inside of your Godot game. Okay, so let me just close that again and just review what we did here. So in the coding, in the script, there are references to the keys being pressed, and the UI versions are defaults and they will work, but in a complex situation they might not work so well. This is creating custom ones, and I've named one jump, one left and one right, and again that was done in the project settings under the input map, and you can just click add new action and you create a name. I'll go down just to temporarily create one here, add, and then once in the list you can hit the plus button and assign any keys, joysticks, joypad elements, anything you like from this library of choices. Okay, I'm going to actually delete that one, which gives me a chance to show you how to delete. It's the little garbage can, if you couldn't figure that out. And I'm going to close that. We're going to save it, and one final test. Okay, so I'll just make this bigger once again. And I'll use the AWD keys. There's my jump. Okay. And I'm not so great at playing games. But there you have it, folks. Okay, so I'd like you to complete this thought and complete this assignment. So this is basically part 2 of what we did last week. We added more controls. We added some animation. We made some custom controls as well. And we're definitely making it more sophisticated. We added sort of a drag. So when we release the key, that there's a deceleration and doesn't just stop suddenly as well. So it's just getting better and more refined as we go here. And I'd like you to hand this in, again, compressed. So let me just close that, and you would go project, pack project as zip, and I might as well save this here. And I think I will just save it in my Godot ouellette folder and save that. And that's what you will hand in to Canvas. Let me just go out and show you that folder. Oh, I know, I put them in documents. Duh, okay. Godot ouellette, and there is my file. I'm tempted to take the date stamp out of the name, but you can do that when you create it. It's good to have it as well, I guess, but I like my short file names. There we go, and that's what I will hand in, or have you hand in, to Canvas. And that is our assignment for today.